By the way, it should be said that, I mean, I don't remember if I ever thought about it. I probably did, but I mean, I forgot about it because, I mean, I'm not like, I'm not occupied with electrolysis like in the last several months, but it should be said that the idea that I'm going to start to work just now on it, of like two electrolysis chambers made out of clay, but it could be made of metal or other materials, I mean, with all sorts of symbolism, and with one like, with the living, like I mean, double, like I mean, symbol, and one, and with color and electricity, and one with like the dead or the sculpture symbol, and the higher one is, I mean, the higher one is the one with the living like symbols. I mean, as I said, I mean, it might be helpful in order to get this body like this synthetic flight to live again. And as I said, it might be helpful to initiate kind of like a presidential night of the living dead. To resurrect, like, I mean, important people that were buried in kind of like, I mean, in mostly in caskets. But maybe it will only also, I mean, like be valid like if they are buried in the ground. But I mean, they should have been like many of the Neros. Like they should have been hybrids in my definition. And it can be interesting, and maybe we'll see something like that even tonight. But it should be said. I mean, that's, I mean, I'm not like necessarily say that. I mean, it's kind of like in the agenda. I mean, perhaps it is, but I know. I mean, not. Let's, I mean, not make it an agenda video, but more like, I mean, as a research discussion, a scientific discussion, that a very similar construction, symbolic construction, just, I mean, with opposing like heights, like, I mean, that I mean, just, I mean, that, I mean, the crucible that is higher in like the suggested construction will be actually, I mean, the higher will be the lower, and the lower will be the higher. It's like, I mean, it might not prove very beneficial in kind of like the concrete sense of like actually producing things on the table, but symbolically it should be said, and I actually thought about it in the past, so it's not that new, but I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, maybe it's important to mention that, I mean, it should result in probably in something that is very similar to what happened during the 1980s, which means, I mean, it will probably affect like the clay people, which means like, you know, Homo sapienses that have eaten the Neros, and like with many Neros, I mean, and I don't know what's the threshold. I do admit that I don't know, because I don't know how many you eat and how it affects you. So I understand that, I mean, starting some threshold, I mean, you are very like hooked on it, and I call these creatures like the hybrids, but I do not know any kind of like, I cannot like define the threshold, but I mean, so it will probably like be a symbolic construction that will gradually, I mean, with the progression of like fire or electricity, with time, I mean, transform all the hybrid Homo sapienses to you know, shochnei afar, as they say, and it's it might be valid that, I mean, if I'm not saying that it's, I'm not saying that this is the like I mean, I do not, I know moreover I will be more like, I mean, like, you know, clear on the matter that, I mean, currently, I mean, at this specific point, it is, I mean, explicitly not in my agenda for tonight, because I have other things that I want to do. But I mean, yes, it might, I mean, theoretically, yes, it is a valid way, not the only way, to deal with the hybrid situation. That you do understand that they hunt me for many, many years. I mean, they're all around me. They're in this apartment, and I mean, and I mean, you understand that, I mean, the hybrids, I mean, they are the most powerful inside the intelligence organization of Israel, but not only in Israel, because they ate so much of the drug. And they have the most incentive to torture me and to keep me as a slave, because they need the red Neros from the females, and they can only get it by intermediation of like the yellow Neros, which is my own, that I act like as brown Neros. I already discussed it already. So so the whole shochnei afar direction, while I explicitly say that it's currently at that point, it is certainly explicitly not on the agenda. I mean, it certainly might be, I mean, inserted into the agenda at like, I mean, at some point, I mean, in the far or not, I mean, distant or not, presumably not extremely distant future. Not extremely distant future. And I would assume that my predecessor, I mean, I discussed this guy quite a bit in the Pascal 201 saga, that, I mean, you do understand that everything that happens, like, I mean, by the cherubs, or by divine intervention, I mean, it's got like kind of symbolic action by the Rabbi Lord Commander of the fleet. You understand it? That, I mean, it's needed in order for people to understand. Not because, I mean, the symbolic action, I mean, are those things that actually like create the effect. This is pagan view. But because, I mean, people need to understand that, I mean, they are not just, I mean, hit, like, punished by, like, I mean, kind of like, I mean, capricious gods without any, like, I mean, thought. They need to understand that there is a reason for, like, things that happen. And the reason can be found in the speech, in the words of a certain person that is sent as a messenger. So sometimes his message needs like kind of like, I mean, validation or authorization. And this is done by, I mean, the manifested connection, physical connection between the symbols that this person, the Rebel Lord Commander of the fleet, I mean, produces and the actions in our world. So most certainly during the 1980s, I would assume that he also created such a construction, and probably in a very fancy way because it's important construction. And probably that was, I mean, it was not the reason, but it was the catalyst or the symbolic command or symbolic, I mean, I would say construction that started this kind of like purge that, I mean, pretty much destroyed the CIA, the KGB, and certainly the Shabak and the Mossad during the 1980s, and perhaps also other intelligence services. But I would assume that other services were, I mean, affected, I mean, to a much lesser extent because they have eaten much less of the tea, like the drug. Anyways, I said I must, like, I mean, explicitly say this is explicitly not part of my agenda for today, but it's certainly, I mean, something to think about, like, for the future, and like, I mean, and when I say future, I probably mean tomorrow, because I do not enjoy being tortured in the Nazi prison and being detached from my daughters. I do not enjoy it at all. So yes, I mean, a second purge is certainly a valid solution to our conundrum. Yes. You don't need to believe me, or you don't need to believe anybody. I mean, it's part of your history, and it's not a distant history. It happened during the 1980s, not that long ago, all around the globe.